Welcome to Backstory and Beyond with your host, Ward Camp, seeker, innovator, and president of Northwood Retail. As Ward travels the country, he'll share the industry insights he's gained over a 3 decades-long retail career, introduce you to trailblazing business leaders and disruptive founders, and uncover the real deal about some of the greatest cities in the world. This week, Ward is back in Charlotte visiting Joe Haubenhofer, co-founder of Harriet's Hamburgers and branding agency, the Plaid Penguin. They'll discuss how to nurture an entrepreneurial spirit, the value of using emotional connection to differentiate in a crowded market, and the unique origins of America's favorite sandwich. All that and more on this episode of Backstory and Beyond.
We're here in Charlotte, North Carolina with our special guest, founder and creator of Plaid Penguin and Harriet's Hamburgers, Joe Haubenhofer. He has been able to take his background and the creative side of Plaid Penguin and Harriet's Hamburgers and create what we call social selling, which we think is big. So we're excited to visit with him today and learn a little bit about his background and his story and his journey.
Sure, yeah. We can start with college. Yeah, it was just something that you did after high school, but that was about as much information I had. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I grew up in Minneapolis, something I'm very proud of, just the people, the culture, everything, but ended up finding a school down here in North Carolina and just fell in love with Carolina and graduated with at the time it was called a management information systems degree. I get out of there and I'm like, well, okay, what do you do now? So I went back to Minneapolis and I was like, well, I better get a job in information, systems. Ended up working for a really cool startup. They did like data collection for EMS service. When I started there were 6 people. When I left, there was like 150. So during my tenure there, about 3 years, just saw explosive growth. It just taught me so much about business and just going out and pitching an idea or making up a product. I found myself really hanging out with the marketing team, which was really a graphic designer. And they're the only ones that had an Apple computer in this whole place. And I would just be like, how did you, designing a trade booth or a brochure or a website? I was just like, this is fascinating to me, just the idea of distilling visuals and how to make it, digestible for somebody. That experience to me was so invaluable because of all I learned. But I just knew like I was just punching the clock and working for somebody else. And it was cool, but it wasn't it. So at that time, I met my now wife, Mary, and first night we ever met, we said, if we're friends in 6 months, well, let's go to New Zealand together. And sure enough, we were friends, and we sold everything, and we hightailed it to the South Pacific, and it was extraordinary. We went to Fiji for a month or so, in Australia, got into New Zealand and traveled around for a good month and a half till we landed in this South Island. It's a little town called Lake Wanaka. It's like a glacier town. And we just sat there. We're like, yeah, we're going to post up here for a little bit. Up until that point, like I was saying, like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I see all my other friends like working in big corporations and climbing the ladder, going the safe route. And I was just like, that's not what I want to do. So let's go somewhere where we can just take some time and figure it out. So did that and scratched some itches. I bought an Apple. The first time I ever had an Apple, that was like a big deal at the time. iPhones didn't even exist then. Taught myself like how to use Photoshop. The other thing during this period too is I was very much into food and people and culture. The idea of like going over to a really good friend who is Croatian, and they're very centered around family and food. And they have these big long dinners and lots of traditions. And I was always just like so fascinated by how they gather and break bread. And so I was like, I know I want to do something with food, but I wasn't quite sure. So there's this little cafe / brick oven pizza shop. I convinced them to let me be a chef. Coming from the US, like I said, I was a chef. I literally almost burnt the place down. We had a grease fire with water and it was totally my fault. But so I was playing around with ingredients, teaching myself, watching Bobby Flay, Food Network, reading stuff. Up until that point, food and design or storytelling, I just never knew that was like possible. Like there wasn't a degree for that.
So after New Zealand, how did you and your wife end up in Charlotte?
Yeah, well, we got back and we were like, okay, well, what are we going to do? And it's like, well, we don't have jobs. We don't have a house, anything. And my wife at the time was working for Target headquarters prior to New Zealand. So we knew we needed to be in like a hub city where she could maybe get into a larger organization. But so we picked Charlotte, moved here in 2007 in August. So it's like right before everything just changed.
So my understanding is you were a private chef when you were in Charlotte.
That's correct. To scratch the food itch, I realized in New Zealand, after being a small chef or a chef in a small area, I was like, I do not want to do that. But I just loved being around food. So I was like, what else can I do? One, to make money, and two, to scratch the itch. And I answered this ad on Craigslist, believe it or not. And it was like for a private chef. This private chef was leaving to go on a yacht for a wealthy family, and he had an opportunity in town. He cooked for a couple of the Bobcat players. That was our NBA team at the time. And so I went in there, and he liked me, and he's like, okay, I want you to cook for him. So I went through this like interview, and I just remember cooking jambalaya. They ended up being my client and a friend of mine. His name was Emeka Okafor. He was massive dude, came out of UConn in 3 years, won the championship. He was just a really cool cat, single guy. He was like, that was one of the best meals I ever had. So I was his private chef for a little bit.
So how did the Plaid Penguin come about?
I knew I wanted to start a business, didn't know what it was, knew it was going to be something inside of design and food. So I would just like reach out to different local businesses, sometimes caterers, sometimes restaurants. I'd reach out to agencies too. So yeah, I would reach out to these small companies and just say, hey, let's refresh your website. I'll help you get on Google. That was 2008, right when we got back from New Zealand. And since then, we've just grown and have many iterations of the organization. Now we're a hospitality-centric branding, design, communications firm. Have an exceptional team. Been growing with a lot of clients. We're getting the right kind of people coming to us to work with. Exciting collaborations like Harriet's.
So you guys are just street hustlers, just straight out.
Yeah, I mean, it was the spare bedroom to the garage, finally to office. That was a big day. We're in the service business, which it pretty much is the GDP these days. And so we had to separate ourselves, and we did that by just caring a little bit more, paying attention a little bit more, trying a little bit harder. You got to show up. Yeah. You got to deliver.
You just said the word, you got to show up. A lot of people just won't show up. But I think, college and checking the box is becoming, people are starting to question the value. And I would take somebody that works hard or is a street hustler over somebody that's really overeducated. I mean, I think, luck is a derivative of hard work. And I just think if you're a street hustler and you can sell it.
Everybody, some people say sales is like a bad word. Every day we're trying to persuade somebody to have them do something we want them to do. And if you can do it with a little finesse, right, you don't have to be the best in front of people. But if you show up, like you said, in hard times and not, if you return phone calls, that's going to get you a long way. So we're at a really cool place right now, just the clients that we've grown with, the team that we have. And that's really afforded me to just go back to that New Zealand mindset of just like scratch some itches, go down some paths. And, the relationships that I've had and nurtured over the years have now come back and, are paying off. And it's really exciting. That's really where the idea of Harriet's was born, was kind of through a lot of those relationships.
So having met Chef Brian this morning, my understanding, he was the inspiration or part of the inspiration for the concept Harriet. So just kind of.
So with Plaid Penguin and all those things that we do outside of marketing and branding, there's this kind of advisory or consulting aspect to it. So for Harriet's, one of our clients was a food hall, a local food hall here, Optimus Hall. And we were working on that project for quite some time and working with the owners on the tenant mix and the design and everything. And so we knew there needed to be a burger place in there. And there were the people that were coming to the table locally at the time, it just was not there. So I turned to the owner. I'm just like, I know exactly what we need to do. It's just simplicity more than just like a crazy burger place with 17 different options, right? And they were like, yeah, I love the idea, but it's like, I'm not going to go back in the kitchen and burn it down. And so I remembered Chef Brian and Shelly, they kind of grew up in more, fine dining, but they quit their jobs and opened up a food truck. And this was like at the time of the movie Chef, right? And Roy Choi, like right. This was like the inception, and they came out of the gates with the, like Twitter, where are you kind of truck kind of a thing. And my brother and I found them, and we had the grilled cheese, and it was just like, this is not your typical grilled cheese. I mean, the stuff that he's sourcing and the way that he's cooking it. The story I always like to tell is he has, those bacon weights you put to keep bacon flat, like on a griddle. Yeah. He would have 5 or 6 different weights that he would put on the different grilled cheeses because they melted at different ratios or time. So I just love that precision and that level of detail that he was paying attention to, and the end product was exceptional. So I was like, I know who we need to go to. So I went to Brian. I was like, hey, Brian, you want to make a burger place? And he's like, yes, I've always wanted to work with you. Let's figure it out. And so that's kind of how that was born. That was the second leg of our tripod. The third leg is another partner. And that's probably the special thing about Harriet's, I think, is, the cauldron. Have you ever seen one of those? Yeah. Like the big tripod and the pot in the middle. Like that's how I describe our partnership. It's like these 3 really strong legs where they all have their purpose and their lane, and they just do it so well. And then we bring it all in the middle into this amazing like stone soup or big sweet chili that we're making all together. And that's where the secret sauce really kind of comes about.
You talk about the 3 different kind of disciplines your partners have. Maybe expand on each person.
Starting with me, leg 1, the design, branding, food, vision kind of guy, the creative guy. And I have the supercharging agent of Plaid Penguin behind me that can do all the wonderful stuff. Brian and Shelley on the ops side and the culinary side, making sure everything is up to standards and making sure people are leaving happy. And then the third leg is Colin and Glenn, our partners, and they have a development company and as well as a incubator for a lot of different businesses. And so they are everything from legal, back office, real estate. And so they have that locked up. So we, all 3 of us in our respective teams can do all of these things. And then us 3 come together and we collaborate in different formats. So it might be like, hey, design team, we need to talk with Shelley about packaging and what's realistic and where are we storing it and what's the function of introducing, a wrapper and what are the implications. And then it might be Colin and I talking about, hey, we need to look at growth. Where should we, what stores, what size, all that stuff. Glenn might be talking to Brian about the P&L and costs and, controlling those and what should we do to negotiate a better deal with our meat purveyor, whatever it may be. But there's no ambiguity in all of our roles and we're all very set on the same North Star. So that to me, I think is the most special thing about Harriet's, honestly, is we can all operate with such freedom and it's exciting and we lift each other up. And that's the true accelerant, I think.
And then on Harriet's, you guys are in the mood business, right? You have a North Star. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, 80%, I think one of the statistics we pulled way back when of beef is consumed in a ground beef format. So, I mean, it's like second to or first to pizza, and they're personal to people. There's so many different types. And so we knew we were going to differentiate ourselves by saying, hey, we have the best hamburger. So we just said, hamburgers, when you bite into a good one, you just smile, you just become happy. And at the time we launched during COVID too. So this played really well because everybody's so freaked out about everything. And, it was just like, let's just, be a little nicer to each other. Let's be kind, enjoy something, as simple as our iconic America's favorite sandwich, we call it the hamburger. It's just that simple. So that's when this idea, which is not just on its face and like on our website, like we're very intentional about when we say the mood boosting business. I mean, we have like an internal cultural document with very specific nomenclature. We don't have customers, we have guests. We don't have cashiers, we have happiness captains. We don't sell burgers, we sell hamburgers. And, nobody's at their phone. We're meeting people where they're at. This is where Brian and Shelley really excel. It's like, how do you take fast food and kind of elevate it to, a Danny Myers kind of hospitality thing? That's what we try to bring is, encourage and induce smiles. And it's a big part of our formula. And I do think it goes a long way.
Going back just a couple of things. One of the questions, how did you come up with the name Harriet's Hamburgers?
Yeah, so we knew we wanted to use the word hamburgers because of its nostalgic appeal and separate ourselves from burgers. And we love alliterations. Plaid Penguin, last name's Haubenhofer. So we had to have a really simple name for our kids, Henry and Harriet. So you can see where I'm going. Henry Hamburgers, Hank's Hamburgers. There's a bunch of those all over New York and New Jersey. Can't trademark it. Harriet, surprisingly, was available. And she is such a old soul. She's like born in the 1920s, I swear. And she's just got such a spunk and a sparkle about her. And that just, it truly embodies what we were trying to achieve with Harriet. It's fun and with a little bit of spunk, a little bit of sparkle.
I never realized the genesis of the hamburger was a Hamburg steak in New York and Chicago. And it was just minced beef, garlic and onions.
Yeah, white bread.
Isn't there a mystery around where the bun came in? And
for sure, yeah. And who did the first hamburger sandwich? Yeah. So there's so much folklore around it, and that's what makes it so fun. Is like you travel around the country, and everybody has their own kind of specific burger. You know, I know you're from Oklahoma City, like the Oklahoma burger, or Minnesota, where I'm from. We have like Juicy Lucy, you know, and then there's the smash burgers that kind of largely probably, I think, kind of can be attributed more to the In-N-Out style. And there's the big backyard burgers or the steak burgers. And so all that stuff is just so fun. And that's why we didn't want to come out and be like, we're going to do a burger place where we have blue cheese and onions and Gruyere and, you know, a peanut butter and jelly one. Like it was just too clunky and messy. We just wanted to do one the best way we knew how and treat people, you know, well. So not adding boozy milkshakes and hot dogs and chicken sandwiches, which is where a lot of that stuff goes. And our dreams aren't to be, you know, massive. I think we just kind of want to be the Southeast. We want to be known in the Southeast. Whataburger in Texas, In-N-Out in California, Culver's, Wisconsin, you know, Five Guys, which I would say is our most similar model. But there's not anything in the Southeast, in our opinion. And I think that we're trying to create something that can scale and go places and be easily operated by others. That's where simplicity, it just makes it so much easier to do that.
Simplicity will allow you to scale.
Yeah.
Obviously, working in the tech business, you saw how to scale quick. That's the key to it. You find the right guy, Chef Brian, you get the key pieces to open this, the design-wise, you bring all the creativity there, balancing, you know, between being an entrepreneur, running the business, outperforming everyone, you know, in the hall, which to my understanding, I've heard the numbers are pretty staggering, but that's kind of the key to it, right?
For sure. And that's where that tripod kind of comes into play is, Brian and Shelley, they operate the front line, and the team that they've cultivated based on what we always envisioned from day one, they've just done an exceptional job. I mean, Brian will taste our hamburger every single day. And that hamburger, I want to say it was upwards of 90 different permutations of it. We knew we wanted to just make it a smash burger. We knew we wanted to have, you know, American type cheese and a bun. But all the other components were kind of up for debate. So we had to source the right kind of beef. Then we had to source the right kind of cheese. Yellow American versus a white American, its meltability and its thickness and the quality. And in fact, the same burger we have today, if you flip the ingredients, it tastes completely different. Just like the textures, and if you hit sauce first, or if you hit pickles first, or if you hit the onions first.
I think you guys have one of the top burgers, you know, I've had, and I'm not just saying that. I think it's well thought out.
Yeah, appreciate that.
But you guys keep it really simple. I mean, you know, the OG burger, the fries you were telling me, you use the same fry that Thomas Keller uses.
Yeah, we knew we wanted a McDonald's style fry. We liked the double crisp of more of a McDonald's style fry, but a higher quality one. And so Brian, being with his gourmet chef background, he was like, yeah, we should use those fries. And I was like, yeah, we should. So we tasted a bunch of fries. You know, the beef is what you'd find in a really fancy steakhouse. No antibiotics, you know, it's all natural, and it's a really rich, delicious beef. Our buns are being made by a bakery in Chicago, actually, and we tried a lot of different buns. We wanted to make sure it had a dome. So the look is just as important as the taste.
You even look at some of the best restaurants, you know, I know Chef Brian had worked in Michelin star restaurants in New York and San Francisco. You know, you think about like Balthazar, what are they really known for? Their hamburger. You know, you think about Houston's or Hillstone, what are they really known for? A lot of people will go there for a burger. You know, some of the best restaurants in the U.S. have a burger on there specifically.
And that goes to the 80% of the U.S. consumption is the burger. Yeah. That's what America wants. And that's why we felt like, you know, we can just sell that. Why do we have to sell other stuff? The demand's there. Like, don't complicate it. Let's not try to be known for other things.
I'll make it pretty easy. You know, when Ralph Lauren opened the Polo Lounge in New York, people want a burger and fries. And he was able to put it to, it is comforting.
It's happy, yeah.
Yeah. And that's why people go there in the middle of Manhattan with all this nice food around. So talk a little bit about, you're going to expand this year. We're obviously, working together on a very unique project, the bowl down at Valentine, but I think you've got 2 or 3 more opportunities that you guys are going to open, and it feels like your growth trajectory, your rate of change is very fast, and it feels like it's all coming together now.
Yeah. We're super excited about the bowl. I think you guys have just curated such a top-notch tendency of powerhouses for food that we feel like we're in good company there with, and just the design of the overall development. We're super excited to be a part of that for sure.
And you're going to introduce some new menu items.
Yeah, this is where Brian and I can get into the kitchen and want to do a lot of cool things. Not necessarily chicken sandwiches or hot dogs or anything, but yeah, I would say over the last couple of years at Optimus Hall, just like you said, it's allowed us to really just refine everything and kind of come back to our roots. Like we had so many ideas, like a vegetarian burger, or, expanding to a bunch of different healthier sides like salads. And we could make a delicious light side salad and probably an amazing roasted veggie burger. But we just got back to the core, and we're just like, we're a hamburger joint, like first and foremost. And we just got to stay true to that. Our number one request is bacon, lettuce, and tomato. We don't have those ingredients. And we knew that was going to be, again, burgers are personal and people make them and they want that. So one of my favorite movies, Pulp Fiction, where we're calling it the Royale. And so it's going to be a version of a California style burger. We're using a really cool new cheese. Brian is friends with Chef Eric Greenspan out of Los Angeles. And he came up with this new American cheese. It's called New School. And it doesn't have any kind of synthetic, artificial, anything into it. So again, cheese man coming through. So we're offering that. That's going to be called the Royale. And then another one is the Juicy Lucy, which is, again, from Minneapolis. It's a stuffed cheeseburger on the inside. Brian and I actually just got back doing a bunch of market research, ate our way through Minnesota with Juicy Lucy's, and then cheese curds. And so that's the other item, is we're going to offer some Wisconsin, Minnesota style cheese curds. So one side, couple burgers, then that's it. And some good drinks.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple. And one cookie. We're going to offer a cookie. My son actually, Henry, started a little cookie business and went door to door and sold these cookies from my wife's family's past. They're like monster cookies. So they're basically like the kitchen sink. They happen to be gluten-free. So he played up on that. And so he sold a bunch of those. And throughout the years, like he gets up with Brian at Harriet's and he'll make them with him, and then they'll sell them during 4th of July. So we needed to have a little sweet item.
Get him working.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh yeah. He's actually worked the cash register a couple times at 10. Yeah.
They need it.
Yeah. He was all about it.
Yeah. Lastly, I'd love to just delve into the personal side. A couple things that I'm thinking about is branding wise, like who do you think does it? Doesn't matter if it's food, retail, on that side of the business, that really does a brand really, really well.
Man, that's a challenging one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, brand is so, most people, when they think brand, it's like a logo, right?
Right.
I get really inspired by cookbooks. It's not a brand, but I think cookbook design can really, it's like an album cover, can really distill the story they're trying to tell in a succinct way, or a wine label. It's like the bottle that they chose, or the type of paper, the bottom of a bottle. Ones that are flat, those are cheaper. Concave, those are more expensive. You can tell if they used any sort of etching or engraving, then it's like, well, if they're caring that much about their label, they probably care about the process of making their wine or what they want to deliver you. I think people that, when you gravitate towards that stuff, that's a really special collision of all of those things kind of working together. And you can understand based on all of those things, like how much they care about their product.
And then just kind of moving into the personal side, what do you do for fun, kicking around? Or
I mean, obviously, I love to embark on all sorts of different eating adventures. A big family guy, got 2 kiddos, and we bring them everywhere with us. We spend a lot of time on the lake. We love growing up in Minnesota. We have in the Midwest, we have lots of lake time, wakeboarding and skiing and all that kind of stuff. And just so Carolina is awesome because we can do that 7, 8, 9 months out of the year. Love to travel whenever we can, going to the hotels. And my wife's an interior designer, and so I'm looking at all the food in the menu, and she's looking at all the space design, and we kind of come together.
And then just kind of as we wrap up, We like to call this part the real deal. What's the real deal? You know, a couple things. What are some of the best restaurants you think in town? I know you have a lot of clients, so,
Yeah.
you know, probably touchy.
For sure.
You know,
I mean, the food scene in Charlotte has evolved so much. It's a melting pot of a city. And in the last 10 years, I mean, the last 3 years even, it's just so many new people from around the country are coming in. So it's kind of changed the landscape. But there's some OG, you know, groups for sure. You know, the Noble Food and Pursuit groups. Rooster's been around for 15 plus years. It's one of my favorite restaurants for sure. John Jesser's group, Rare Roots, is exceptional. In fact, I told you guys to go there tonight, get some oysters, one of the best bar programs, Fin and Fino, right down the road here. But there's so many little ones. I mean, I would say Optimus Hall, honestly, because there's such a plethora of, and that's a really good example of kind of regional and national people.
Well, it's authentic. It's one of the few authentic things.
I mean, just some of the operators in there are just really doing a fantastic job.
What do you think the one thing that people should see when they're in Charlotte? Yeah, there's a lot. For
sure. If we're talking about restaurants, too, I would say getting to one of the lakes, go up to Lake Norman and see Hello Sailor. Joe and Katie Kindred do just a phenomenal job. They're really well known in the culinary community, but they have a really cool spot on the water there. And then down in Lake Wiley, kind of the sister lake, there's a place called Papa Doc's, real casual, kind of Key West bar I was mentioned before. That's really cool. I mean, the whitewater rafting centers, it's not, most people think it's just like whitewater rafting, but they got climbing, you walk your dogs, you can do zip lining. That's pretty cool. Our games are pretty fun too. Our sports teams aren't great right now, but the Panthers are in, you know, just turmoil, and Hornets aren't great, but it's cool because they're just with blocks, you know, of each other. The Knights game, we have a baseball team, which is just kind of get a dog and a beer and sit and watch a Field of Dreams game. The FC just came. That's also really fun. And these are all pretty approachable things. They're not like, we're going to see, it's not like New York or Chicago where you have to have like grandfathered season tickets from somebody you have to know. I mean, you can snag these things pretty easily and experience them and just kind of walk around uptown.
Hopefully the football team can turn it around. They had a tough year. So
nothing like an open air stadium. I grew up in Minnesota, as you know, and the Vikings, the Metrodome. I mean, it's just a totally different when you're open air and it's fall, like the burger, like the hamburger. That's America.
Yeah. And then lastly, what do you think is the hidden gem of the city?
Let's see. I'd say there's this place down South Boulevard where there's a ton in the Mexican community, the Latino community, and there's this place called Lupita's, and you go there, it's a taqueria, and they're making fresh corn tortillas it's like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory in there, and they have, you know, carnitas, and you can get some fresh Oaxaca and grab some Modelos. They got, you know, all the pico de gallos made up and the sliced limes. That place is a gem. Some people know about it, some people don't. I like to go there quite a bit, you know, if it's going over to barbecue on a Friday night with some other family members, like, hey, I got food. You guys, don't worry. You make some margaritas and you just go pick up a couple pounds of that, of tortillas and carnitas, and you show up with that. That's a pretty good night.
So just to wrap it up, I want to thank you for your time today, Joe. Where do we find you? Instagram, websites, all that?
Just type in Harriet's Hamburgers, Plaid Penguin.
So it'd be at Plaid Penguin.
Yeah, the Plaid Penguin and Harriet's Hamburgers. Yep.
Joe, I just want to thank you for your time today. I know you're busy. I enjoyed this morning at the food hall. Thanks again for your time.
This has been Backstory and Beyond, hosted by Ward Camp. To learn more about Northwood Retail or the destinations from today's episode, visit backstorybeyond.com.